Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode. I'm Matthew, Watty's channel, back in the game room with a very special episode today. So, yesterday I filmed the Mannix International Wrestling Champion Figures video, and I just posted that video this morning. So, during the process of talking about the video, I showed the Diesel figure that came out in that line, and it really got me thinking about your Unreleased Series 12, which was classified as Orange Series back around 1995 when they were originally supposed to be released. But as we all know, Hasbro lost a contract with the WWF. Therefore, those figures or their prototypes were never released. And, 2 decades plus, I guess manufacturers and customizers never really gave up on the idea of having those figures added to the overall commodity of figures to go through. There are just so many different characters that I felt like if Hasbro had continued their line, figures that would have definitely been made. And I've talked about a number of them myself. And, they include characters like Diesel. Diesel to me was always like the number one guy that absolutely had to be made. Mabel was a huge one I thought always needed to be made. Jarrett was very popular during that time frame. You had the Godwins, who I thought was a good one. Duke the Dumpster Drozy. Before he became Kane in the mid-90s, I think Isaac Yankum would have been a fantastic one. Even with the overall DDS look and everything, I think would have been great. And of course, had Hasbro continued into the late 90s, yeah, you would have gotten Kane, of course. Hasbro was very synonymous for reutilizing the same characters over and over again. And when we look at the Series 12 unreleased figures or the prototypes that were supposed to come out, you are going to see a couple re-releases as well. And I don't necessarily think they need to be made, but at least one of those characters I understand. Once we get to Zombie Sailors, or excuse me, not Zombie Sailors, a few figures down the line from the Mattel Retros, we'll take a quick look at those as well. So, without further ado, let's take a quick look at some of the figures that were supposed to be released back in '95, and with the different toy companies out there manufacturing these Hasbro style figures, we finally got to complete that line here in 2023. So, first figure we're going to look at is from the Mattel Retros, and it is Big Daddy Cool Diesel. So, Mattel Retros continued the Hasbro line in 2016. It's called Retro for a reason, and the whole design, the appearance of the figures, the size, the action feature was always supposed to be reminiscent to that of the 1990s Hasbro, because Hasbro, let's be honest, is the most synonymous action figure for anyone. Probably over the last 40 years or so. I guess because they're smaller, for children, the size in the hand made it a lot easier for play and whatnot. So that was another big commodity for Hasbro over, let's say, LJN. Absolutely love rubber figures, non-breakable figures. The size was awesome, the weight. So if I actually had LJNs as a kid, I would have probably craved those as much as anything. But I definitely understand the figure. The card back itself is very simple. Nothing too flashy. And as you look at the back of the card, I love the fact that it makes it a little bit easier to collect the Mattel Retros than other lines, because they only give you the 4 members, or in terms of Series 1 and 2, I think they had 6 members. So they only show you the characters on the back of the card for that respective series. So I think that was a huge, bonus. 2016 is when Mattel Retros came out. Diesel himself was a Series 10 release. I got a question why one of the characters that were supposed to be released in Series 12 Hasbro, and one of the most talked about names during that era, and decades later, why was he released in Series 10 and not a Series 1 release? You would think that this would be one of the very first figures that Mattel Retros would want to come out with. So overall, I think that the Diesel Mattel Retro is my number one all-time favorite Mattel Retro figure. He kind of goes hand in hand with Braun Strowman. you kind of look at it, Braun Strowman, even on card, is like a $3 figure, which I don't understand because that is such a beautiful, perfect figure. Diesel on card, usually hovers around $100. Even a loose figure, $60 plus. Fantastic figure overall. And, to me, he's got one of the best and easiest functions, which is that little slamming motion, which I absolutely love. Got the Diesel on the front of the shirt. Just an absolute beautiful look. And one of the things I like about these figures compared to your Mattel wrestling superstars, guys like Shawn Michaels, Riz Ramon, etc., that have sunglasses, they come off. And to me, that's annoying. Plus, they're so thin. They don't really, once you take them off, they really don't stick to the head that well. So having these built-on sunglasses, fantastic. Diesel is one of the most important characters that were supposed to have been made, never made. And getting him in the Mattel Retro around 2018 was incredible. As you guys know, I wasn't into collecting in 2018. I didn't start collecting until late 2021. And the Mattel Retros, they were, because most of them were only 4 men to a series, they were relatively easy to pick up. You had a lot of extremely high dollar price items, no doubt, but overall, the line was relatively simple, and I think I finished it in like 4 months or so, getting all the figures on card. And then as I came home and Mattel Creations started releasing the figures, I was getting updates and whatnot, so I was still able to keep up with the Mattel Retro carded line. And over the last several months, I've been trying my best to pick up as many loose figures as I could. Diesel, definitely the most important figure. So glad to get that one. And again, he works beautifully with the Hasbros. If you're an adult, or if you have kids and you're letting them play, whatnot, it blends in beautifully. So we are going to, I'm going to pause because even though I have the loose figures here, I did pull the carded figures, so I'm going to do so real quick. I'll be back in a split second. Alright, right on. So, the next character we are going to look at is Lex Luger. So, the All-American Lex Luger was a Mattel Creations release. We call it Wave 3, but you could call it Wave 3, or you could look at it as Series 13, whichever works best for you. And Wave 3, I believe, was released earlier in 2023. So, not like, your original 10 series from Mattel Retros. Once you start coming out with the different waves from Mattel Creations, they kind of did away with the color, have a little black and white background. It's okay. It still gives you the 4 characters from that respective series, which is awesome. And, it still gives you your bio card and, of course, your working function and what have you. So, I get it. Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior, they all had releases in the first 3 series. Ted DiBiase had a series had released in Series 1 and 2, again in Series 9, and about a million other characters have done the same thing, have a ton of different releases. So, having Lex Luger, knowing that other characters were released in back-to-back series, or you might have an Undertaker and Bret Hart from Series 4 and again in Series 8, or Mr. Perfect in Series 3 and then Series 8, etc. So, it's not uncommon in the era of Hasbro. In Series 8, 1994, you had the Narcissus Lex Luger released in Hasbro. Which is kind of funny because in 1993, aboard the USS Intrepid, that was Independence Day 1993, Lex Luger, came off the helicopter and all of a sudden he went from this narcissist who only cared about himself and his own look and everything to suddenly being all American and be all ho-ho. And it's all crazy because I've said it before, the fans went from booing this guy just the day before to going all ecstatic over him as he battled Yokozuna to do the body slam. And all of a sudden, and you actually watch that body slam, it's like the most nonsensical, lackadaisical body slam you've ever seen. You obviously, even if Lex Luger really could, lift 500 pounds or 600 pounds, whatever, just the ability to get your arms around certain parts of the body would be almost impossible based on Yokozuna's size. So obviously Yokozuna had to jump up in order to allow Lex Luger to body slam him. But you're not talking like over the top body slam. He basically had him like this and basically put him down. So it looked funky. But, you know, he was the man that body slammed Yokozuna, and the WWF really pushed Lex Luger to be this all-American character, just like your Hogan and your Sergeant Slaughter and your Jim Duggan, etc. And he really was supposed to be the face of the franchise. He was supposed to replace Hogan as the new superhero of the WWF. And, you know, he had these little bus tours that go from town to town, etc. Fans, I guess, just simply didn't gravitate towards him. Maybe because they still have that narcissist bad guy in the backdrop. Or maybe they didn't like him as a wrestler. Or for whatever reason, he didn't really do it for a lot of the fans. And unlike Hogan, he wasn't the best talker either. I'm not the best talker, so I really can't complain. I've never had any issues with any of Luger's promos or anything like that. Yesterday, I finally did go ahead and complete the WrestleMania 8, and it took me about, because I watched it 3 different days, it took me about a week and a half or so to finish that tape, so not exactly something I'm like super eager to like sit down to. But during WrestleMania, you know, Bobby Heenan, he and Gorilla Monsoon, they were interviewing Lex Luger, who was being filmed in his home, and to me, I think he did a fantastic job, you know, being the guy that he was supposed to participate as the narcissist, you know, talking about how can you have, like, because they had this bodybuilding thing in the WWF that only lasted a very short while because it wasn't successful, and he wasn't part of that group of bodybuilders. Great talker, I think, but according to everybody else, he wasn't. Whatever, I didn't care. I don't necessarily think Lex Luger needed to have another release. I think your Series 8 Narcissus Lex Luger was just fine. And when you look at the actual body type of Lex Luger, and then you kind of compare him to, like, you know, your Series 8 release, very, very similar poses. Again, you've got a ton of Hasbro figures where they reutilize the exact same body mold, and all they did was change the colors. So, obviously a little bit different. You know, you've gone from, like, the Lex Luger Hasbro, where you raise the arms, they slam down, to this kind of like this little power slam type of finisher or whatnot. So, you know, it's a Lex Luger face. It's all American Lex Luger, and it's something additional to add to the toy line. Of course, didn't happen. So, Mattel Retros and Mattel Creations, when they came out with this figure in Wave 3 this year, you moved one step closer to completing a line that should have been finished or made back in 95. And I also kind of really like the fact that they actually did put Lex Luger on like this orange card backing to an extent. So that was really nice as well. Another figure I never thought needed to be made, but Mattel Creations and, you know, for the Mattel Retros, you came out with Dink. And again, they kind of stick with the orange card. And this whole box set from this series is orange card. And then you've got like the prototypes, like your Tugboat and your Rhythm and Blues Greg Valentine. Characters that were, or figures that were supposed to be made in the early 90s, but they were dumped because those characters became, you know, like Typhoon. Tugboat became Typhoon. You got a Typhoon release in 92 with Series 3. Greg Valentine was no longer partnering up with the Honky Tonk Man. He got a release in 92 in Series 3, but as just simply Greg the Hammer Valentine and not Rhythm and Blues Greg Valentine. So Dink, a lot of people enjoy this more than the original. I completely disagree. I think the original Hasbro was far superior than what you get from the Mattel Creations. Fantastic figure. There's absolutely no doubt about this. I love the Dink figure. I think, I mean, is he like a top 10 or top 15 figure among Mattel releases? I don't know, but I mean, you know, he's still you know, a really fun figure nonetheless. And I've talked about how when I looked at different Dink figures, when I looked at the Hasbro Series 6 Doink, or Series 9 Doink, excuse me, I looked at that Doink as being kind of like your Matt Osborne. As you know, Matt Bourne, aka Matt Osborne, he was fired from the WWF. Anger issues, locker room cancer, drug addict, alcoholic, just a lot of negatives surrounding his personal life. But you can never deny what he did in the ring, and he brought Doink to life, and nobody could ever portray Doink the Clown the way that he did. He made it kind of like, Pennywise from It. He was very psychotic with his pranks in the early 90s when he portrayed Doink the Clown. And then guys like, Matt Skinner, not Matt, I call him Matt Skinner. Guys like Skinner, who, from the Fabulous Ones. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank. I hate that. I say his name a million times, and now all of a sudden I forget his name. Not Stan Lane. Damn. Whatever. You guys know who I mean. But he played Skinner, and then he played Doink. And the second I end this video, I'm going to remember the name. It's going to tick me off. I kind of look at this Doink as his portrayal compared to Matt Bourne's Hasbro figure, which, again, is simply Matt Bourne. And this one is the... It's gonna kill me. And I got the Remco figures right in front of me, but I can't see the name tags because, I'm super blind. Well, not super blind. I can still see, but it's too far away to make out the names. So that's who I classify this Doink as. I don't think it's the same thing. And I like the fact that when you look at the original Hasbro, the hair, it feels like hair, right? It's not this little plastic feel, and that's what really does it for me. But I like the wind up a lot better, under where the original Doink was just an uppercut punch. So a lot of positives. And Doink the Clown would have been re-released in Series 12, and I think that's pretty incredible. That's Doink. So, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Mattel purchased Hasbro. No, that can't be the case, though. I've heard rumors that Mattel purchased Hasbro. I don't know if that was years ago or if they still kind of are part owners or something. Because, Power Rangers Lightning Collection, stuff like that are coming out through Hasbro. So why would they go under the name Hasbro, not Mattel, right? So I'm thinking maybe at one point they sold the business and then reacquired it or something. And they just have to go under their own name. But, so it kind of makes sense that Mattel and Hasbro would have very similar action figures. Moving on to Zombie Sailors. Now, I've tried to research a lot of the figures and try to locate certain characters, certain prototypes. Zombie Sailors did a fantastic job. I know when I first looked at the Jeff Jarrett figure, I wasn't too impressed with it. When you kind of look at it, he's just a bearskin figure with painted on stripes for his shirt. And you could see the shirt, and you could tell the cloth, and then you look at the figure with the paint on. But that's very common. None of these characters, you think that there's a built-on singlet on Andre the Giant. No, it's painted over his body. So, is that really a hindrance? No, but I just kind of figure with today's technology, yeah, that's something I would want to see a difference in, and that's to create actual clothing, on the figure. But you look at the pants, he reminds me of LJ and Rick Rude. So that's pretty solid. I like that. He's just a Owen Hart figure, essentially, with a different head mold. And that is definitely Jeff Jarrett's face, and that is sensational. Again, there are certain characters that I always felt like Hasbro had to make. Jerry Lawler is on that list. Jeff Jarrett was on that list. I mentioned the Godwins. I mentioned Kane and guys like that. So, who else? I'm trying to think big guys during that time period. Like Giant Gonzalez, but not Giant Gonzalez because we already got a Giant Gonzalez figure from Series 10. But, I don't know. It's really hard to think that far back, but Jeff Jarrett, to me, was like a no-brainer. I'm surprised they never came out with a Hart Foundation version of Owen Hart instead of the Rocket Owen Hart. I think had he survived, that might have been a potential Series 12. Or did no he must have died after long after that, because I think that was like late 90s or something, if I'm not mistaken. I remember hearing about that, but like at the time I wasn't watching wrestling anymore, so yeah, that had to be late 90s. So scrap that. I don't have a loose figure of Jeff Jarrett. Again, I try to buy doubles for a lot of these figures. You know, one carded, one loose. But the thing with the zombie sailors, the figures are just so expensive. I mean, if we were talking like Hasbro era prices where they were selling for like $3 or $5 a piece, different story. Even the Mattel retros, you're looking at a pack of 4 for like $60. So even if these were selling for like $15 a piece, yeah, you probably buy a couple of them. But with zombie sailors, each of their figures hover around $45, and it's just you can't pay $90 for 2 figures. That sucks. If you're gonna be a reseller, I think if you're like me and you want a figure loose and you want a figure carded, you're gonna have to buy 3 figures. So right off the bat, you're already paying $135 before taxes and shipping and all that. Reason being, because these are limited quantities, maybe you can resell that third one for like $135 and get all of your money back for all of them. But I don't do that. I mean, if I end up with like a ton of them, I'll put something on there, but I'm not going to completely rip somebody off. You're constantly seeing new figures from like zombie sailors and grapplers and gimmicks, and people are listing these figures at like 3 or 4 times the price on the site, and it's ridiculous. You know, if I'm selling like a Sabu that I paid $40 on, I might sell it for $50 just because I'm trying to, you know, get all the money I paid into it back. But Jeff Jarrett, next one, and this figure right here actually completed the line. But after we look at this figure, we're still gonna look at 2 more. The Booger Man himself, Mike Shaw. So a lot of interesting things about this particular figure. Again, just like Jeff Jarrett, you actually see old prototypes of this exact figure, this exact design, and that is so incredible. So, when figures like Zombie Sailors and Mattel Retros come out with new figures, you're basically screwing over a lot of customizers out there. Because there are so many great customizers who create figures, and I think somebody took like a Bam Bam Bigelow, because, you know, they gotta use the same body pose. Bam Bam Bigelow, Typhoon, Earthquake, they all have the same mold, just a different repaint. So somebody took a Bam Bam or what have you, repainted it, remolded it, put a different head on it. They created the same Bastion Booger. They even put it in a bubble and created their own Hasbro card back, orange card. Same picture almost, only he's not picking his nose. But you see that figure, it's like $135 on their Buy It Now page, or as a Buy It Now. And I was definitely considering purchasing that one at one point. Or you see people like create Hasbro style LJ and Big John stud. And again, they're selling for like $125 loose. But then what's coming up next with Mattel Creations, in the next series you're going to see a Big John stud figure. And so all of these people that are taking time out, you know, putting energy, time, money into creating these customs, and then suddenly these big market companies are coming out with essentially the exact same figure. Somebody's going to look at those figures like, hey, why do I have to spend, you know, a fortune on a fake when I could go to the real business and buy a real figure? So I kind of feel bad for those customizers because, again, the figures look amazing and whatnot, but at $100+, I just, for a custom, for, you know, Hasbro like that, I just didn't think it was worth it. And now with Zombie Sailors coming out with the real thing, it's hard to kind of talk about, you know, said customizers. So the customizer I'm talking about, I think he's based in the UK. I've never bought from him before, but there were a ton of figures he had I really wanted, but just too pricey, I think. Like, he had a One-Man Gang and Big John Stud and, like, SD Jones and, you know, all these LJN style figures created to, you know, Hasbro molds, and they looked incredible. But then you saw the SD Jones I got from Robert Jackson custom figure. That thing is amazing. I absolutely love that. So, and I think he only charged, because I provide the Coco Beware figure, and I think he only charged like $10 or $20 or something very affordable. So that was super awesome of him. Bastion Booger, again, easily, in my opinion, one of Zombie Sailor's most perfect figures. The one downside, if I had one for this particular figure, or maybe a couple, first off, when you look at the hands are just in way too much. Yeah, you could still do a clothesline, body slam, and all that, but not the best body slam. You know, if his hands were separated just a little bit more, like another inch or two, well, maybe not 2 inches, but another inch, I think it would have been a lot better. So that's one thing. One of the things my buddy Kirk kind of pointed out to me is that the legs are immovable. And when you look at your Hasbro Bam Bam and the Natural Disasters, you know, they've got the legs that, you know, move forward and whatnot. That way they can sit on the character. I remember Bastion Booger. I know the name. I remember the look of the character. But for the life of me, I could never remember any of his matches. I don't remember him participating in Battle Royals or anything like that, but I know he did. I don't remember his matches. So it's like, how do you remember a character yet don't remember, you know, his matches? It's just one of those things. He talked about how Bastion Boogie used to kind of like twerk or something, and then used to fall on the guy, and that was his finisher. I haven't done so yet, but I really need to go watch some Bastion Booger film or something, because I'm curious about how he used to wrestle. I knew I watched him growing up, most definitely. I just don't have that recollection, unfortunately. So none of Zombie Sailor figures, nothing from Grapplers and Gimmicks have working actions or anything like that. Cello toys, nothing. The only figures that really follow to a T among the Hasbros is the Mattel Retros, because they do have the working functions, the action features. But good belly to the figure. I really like this whole strap and look and everything. To me, I think Bastion Booger was one of the most fun characters. At least look-wise, is one of the most fun. I would have actually liked this to be a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker. And when you look at the next figure we're going to talk about, you're going to know exactly what I mean. How heavy was Bastion Booger? I mean, based on his look, he looks like he's a good 400 pounds, but he could be 3-something for all I know. I don't know. Either way, Bastion Booger, amazing. I just opened up this second card I had just before I made this video. I really didn't want to do so. I hate opening packages, but I did buy 2 figures for a reason, so. The next one we're going to look at, and again, right behind Diesel, I think this is the most important figure from the Series 12 release, or the most important figure that we never got. From Grapplers and Gimmicks, Hasbro Toys gave you a perfect Mabel figure. Again, they put him on the orange card, which is brilliant. That's great advertisement for Grapplers and Gimmicks. The look is phenomenal. They don't give you like that all purple and silver like King Mabel, kind of like what you see up here a little bit. And the one downside that I see with this particular figure, instead of having like purple and gold, he has this purple and yellow. Maybe they just couldn't get the right tone of gold tone, so I'm okay with it. I mean, it's a fine figure. This figure is just so heavy that when they shipped these figures out, the bubble actually fell off because of that error, or because of that weight. But I tell you, man, I gravitate towards the Yokozuna Hasbro figure. I gravitate towards the King Kong Bundy LJN figure for a specific reason, and that's because of the bulkiness and the weight of the figures they're so heavy that it's absolutely amazing. It's beautiful design. Fighting wise, it's incredible. I've talked about wanting to make my own wrestling matches now, because there are certain figures I want to use. I don't care how old I am. I want to have fun with these guys. I haven't done so, but it's killing me not being able to set up some matches, because I want to have a big guy tournament or something. Yokozuna in there with Mabel. Get the Giant Gonzalez from Hasbro. Get the new Zombie Sailors, Andre the Giant. Or if you prefer Hasbro, Giant Gonzalez, or Andre the Giant. Either one works. You've got a King Kong Bundy you get from Zombie Sailors. You've got Bastion Booger. Okay, you've got all these phenomenal big size guys. And Mabel is a perfect figure. The one downside with grapplers and gimmicks, I don't know how to explain it really, but like when you look at like the face and whatnot, it's kind of like it was molded from clay or something. So the head molds and just the skin and whatnot, it just kind of gives you a weird look. Absolutely love the figure. There's no doubt. Again, I'll say it again. It is an absolute perfect figure. The fact that they got the weight on this, amazing. So they did have what I talked about when Grapplers and Gimmicks re-released Mo and Mabel together. They released them in a plain plastic Ziploc type bag, sealed. And it was supposed to represent your Hasbro mail-away figures like Undertaker and Hogan, Bret Hart. And they gave them a different paint job. So they were selling for like $150 for the pair. I just felt like these were selling for what, $75 for the pair for two carded figures. Well, one card, they're both carded individually. And just putting in a plastic baggie and giving a different paint job, and calling it twice the price was not worth it. But then I see it selling like Andrew Todd Martin's page, and it's constantly selling over $200. So I'm like, maybe I should have smartened up and actually got it. And I regret it because at the time I didn't have the finances necessary. Luckily, I got some of my benefits back, so I'm able to continue on with my purchases. But I missed out on that, and I kind of regret it. At least one for myself that I can put with the other figures. Mabel, knowing that this could have been in a Series 12 release, and I wasn't collecting these guys over all these years. I've only been into it the last 2 years. So, if I've been this ecstatic over the last couple years just trying to pick these guys up, I kind of feel bad for the fans who've been waiting on these, literally have been collecting or watching wrestling ever since childhood and to this very day. But it does, I'm pretty sure, bring a smile to a lot of people's face, being able to add certain characters and bring certain fan favorites to the roster. Mabel. So there was a second Man on the Mission figure, and it's Mo. I gotta be honest, Man on a Mission, the name sounds familiar. Mo, his look and his name sounds familiar. But I can't say for sure if I ever actually watched him or really even cared about Mo per se. I can't remember a darn thing about him. Yeah, I mean, he would have been part of, the 3-man Men on a Mission team. And I would have seen them, but I guess there's certain characters you just don't gravitate towards, and it doesn't really matter. So Mo, he's not the heaviest guy in the world, so he doesn't have a figure like Yokozuna or like your Mabel, etc. But he is a nice, big, hefty figure for the most part, considering his size. So he does have some weight to him, and even though he didn't have as much weight on this one than the Mabel, even this figure was kind of coming off the card. So Grapplers and Gimmicks had to kind of reissue a new packaging with stronger bubble, because I had bought 2 of each set, of each pair of each wrestler. The one package that was falling apart, I kept them loose, so it's it serves its intended purpose. And because I didn't have to sit there and with a little scraper to kind of go around the edges of the bubble, because when I do take the figures out of the card, I don't sit there and just grab the bubble, squeeze it, and yank it off. No, I finesse my way around the bubble to try and take the figure out that way, so that if I ever want to repackage, reseal the figure, I can. And you guys see what cards are selling for today. LJN, Hasbro cards, and bubble, even without the figure, sometimes they can go for $20 to $150. For a green card, 1, 2, 3 kid, without figure, a $200 package. So That's why I tried my best to save the packages and bubble as much as humanly possible. At the very least, the bubble, because I think the cards, you'll probably always be able to find card backs regardless. But the bubble, especially if it's like not cracking or anything like that. So yeah, with Men on a Mission, Mabel and Mo, I didn't have to worry about going around the seal of the bubble because it came off naturally. You know, there's no damage to the card. And I don't know. One day I might just take all of those packages that I have opened and put them in a listing and just, sell them all together. I don't know. But I really want to hold on to them because I feel like that's still going to be valuable in the future. Mo, again, his arms aren't quite in as far as like Bastion Booger as an example, but they're kind of in. They're not in like this, but they're in more like towards his shoulders. I think it still would be a fun, playable fighting figure nonetheless. Again, he's bulky, which means if I were playing with this, I would be through the moon and having so much enjoyment with this figure. And you know what? This would be a character. I would probably, I don't wrestle him. If I wanted to, I think I would make him and Mabel constant tag team champions, kind of going back and forth with other tag teams. This guy, I could see him like being an individual champion, whether it's Intercontinental or Heavyweight Champion. Yokozuna would like always be my Heavyweight Champion. Mabel, I think they could go back and forth with as Heavyweight Champions. Maybe one day he steps in and squares off against Yokozuna and wins. I could have some fun with that. I know I could. Having these two guys go against each other, I think that would be so much fun, man. You guys out there that make these wrestling videos, like Playtime Wrestling, stuff like that, if you guys ever decide to, if you have these figures and you want to put a match like that together, send me that link. I want to see that video so bad. And I think anyone else could do a better job than me, so I think I'd rather just watch somebody enjoying it than trying to do it myself, because I don't remember how anybody wrestles, their style or anything like that, and I would just kind of like butcher the match or whatnot. So just to recap, Diesel, the American Lex Luger, and the new Dink from Mattel Retros, and follow that up with Jeff Jarrett, Bastion Booger from Zombie Sailors, and then from Grapplers and Gimmicks, you've got both Mabel and Mo. There is a third member, as I mentioned, from Men on a Mission. I don't think he was originally part of the original design of or prototypes from Series 12 Hasbro, so he probably wouldn't have been part of this lot. I've actually reached out to Grapplers and Gimmicks because I missed out on that figure, and I inquired about them several times. Not several times, but at least once or twice. See if they have another figure I could buy off them, but they never respond. Grapplers and Gimmicks, if you're watching this video, freaking respond to my messages. No, but it's frustrating because, like, I bought every single one of their figures. But, like I said, there are a couple that I missed. I missed that third member of Men on a Mission, and I didn't buy the other two guys, the variants, because of the price on it. But whenever I send them messages, they never respond. Zombie Sailors, they'll respond every now and then. I've sent them a few messages over the last couple of years, and they've responded a couple times, but recently I've been checking on a status of items not shipped, and it's been like 2 weeks and no response, so I'm kind of frustrated about that too. But anyways, guys, I had a lot of fun making this video, man. I gotta be honest. Up until I kind of did that research and trying to find out about, the unreleased Hasbro figures, this kind of made sense that a lot of these characters were created. And generally, when I kind of look at like Bastion Booger or Jeff Jarrett, like I think like, okay, maybe these guys, decided to create these characters because they had permission from either the rest of themselves or their estate. And as you know, like with Zombie Sailors, the guys that they mold figures after, they give a percentage back to the estate of the wrestler or commentator, whoever it is that they're making. So And but no, it actually serves a much more deeper purpose that these particular characters and figures were designed and released. So that means so much more, owning these figures now. From all my research, I've only been able to come across 7 figures. I haven't been able to come across any additional prototypes that may have been released in Series 12, if that series were released back in '95. So I'm hoping that I got all of them in here. And if you guys know of any releases or expected releases that should have been made that I didn't include, please let me know. I could definitely do a follow-up and include those figures, because more than likely, I'm pretty sure I have them already. Alright guys, that is going to be the completion of this video. And topics for tomorrow, I haven't gotten any responses yet. I know it's only been like a day, but I wanted to do that manager tournament, and I kind of downplayed. I thought there was going to be like less than 20 figures, but with all the customs, there might be more than 20, 25, 30, I don't know. Probably not 30, but I think that would be a fun, quick tournament. And I could do that back-to-back days, keep these dailies going, and it would just add more videos, more content for the channel. There is something I saw yesterday pertaining to mandatory DNA testing or paternity testing for fathers and newborn babies and stuff, and I'm like, man, I need to talk about that. That is freaking awesome. But I want to wait till 2024 to start those type of videos up. It's really killing me not to be able to talk about that, because I'm like, yes, government, you're doing something right. Thank you. But yeah, that's it for now, guys. If I don't hear back from anybody, I'll probably just go ahead and make that video, those manager type wrestling videos. The reason I want to hear your guys' point of view, because I have figures like Mr. Perfect, right? We've got Ted DiBiase. These guys you can utilize as managers because they were managers later on. Lou Albano is in the LJN manager, but he was a pro wrestler previous to that. So, would it be cheating by putting some of these wrestling figures in as managers? I don't think so, but that might give them a much better opportunity to win the tournament. So, you got to kind of balance that out as well. Virgil, do I put Virgil in there as a manager? Maybe. Based on the design, I mean, he's not designed with the fighting pose of a wrestler, so I might include Virgil. It's tough. So many decisions, man. I love making these videos, but there are just so many different options to take with them that it's really hard to come up with a definitive plan. But I'll come up with something solid, and I'll let you guys know. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, look forward to hearing from you in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, everybody.